Long ago, on the Isle of Iona in Scotland, a young man knelt in prayer, his heart and his hands lifting question to the God he loved and served. Oswald was his name, and he had been schooled by the saints of Iona to follow the old paths in the steps of those who long ago had walked with Christ in his way. He could have stayed there on Iona, safe and comfortable, far removed from the battles that had torn his family and homeland apart. But in prayer and in trust, he made a difficult decision. Oswald would return to Northumbria in northeast England, the land of his heritage, to reclaim the throne taken from his father in war. He would put an end to the years of fighting and division so that his people might live in peace. Near Hadrian's Wall, in the year 633, Oswald planted a wooden cross in the good ground of Heavenfield, setting it up as a waymark. In preparation of what was to come, Oswald and his companions knelt together at the foot of the cross and prayed. The ensuing battle was decisive. Oswald was victorious, and Northumbria was united under his kingship. Many of those who fought were intrigued by this new way that Oswald followed, the way of a poor rabbi who took on the burdens of the world through death on a cross. Oswald sent for missionaries from Iona to teach his people this faith, but those first monks' approach was too harsh, too rigid. Everything went wrong, and they withdrew. The king prayed and trusted and waited and once again reached out his hands to God. Then came Aidan from Iona with a band of helpers. This time the work began with a new approach that did not try to dominate, but met people where they were on the land and in their hearts. A monastery was built on the holy island of Lindisfarne. The humble Aidan would walk on foot through farms and fields and villages, sharing the power of the gospel with gentleness and humility. Often King Oswald would join him and would be compelled into acts of generosity when he encountered the poorest in his kingdom. If I'm looking a bit more tanned than the last time you saw me, it's because I spent 8 days in late July walking in pilgrimage on the St Oswalds Way in northeast England. It is a 160-kilometer footpath from Heavenfield, where Oswald planted that cross before the battle that would make him a king, to the holy island of Lindisfarne, where Aidan set up his monastery. It is a land known as the cradle of English Christianity. It's rich with legends of great deeds by great people. It is a land of myth and mystery and miracles, where you must be wary of fairies on the moors and trolls under the bridges. It was also the place of conflict between the more nature-based Celtic understanding of Christianity flowing from Iona in Scotland and the Imperial Roman Church with its more rigid structures and doctrines. Ultimately, the Roman Church won out, but the remnants of the Celtic understanding, Oswald and Aidan's understanding, remain there even to this day. My journey on St. Oswald's Way was important to me. I needed it. It has rejuvenated me, and it will likely provide inspiration for sermons in the coming weeks. Although it was an experience that I had, a journey that I took, the concept of pilgrimage and spiritual quest is a universal tenet of human spirituality. Pilgrimage is a widespread and important practice in Christianity and in other world religions as well, in Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, and Sikhism. In each of these traditions and others, including indigenous traditions, important sacred sites have developed into focal points to which people are drawn, making journeys that demonstrate commitment and reinforce and reinvigorate spiritual health. Now, in Western Christianity, we often live in our heads and make faith an intellectual exercise. But with pilgrimage, we use our whole selves. We get into our bodies. It is something we do. It is an embodied action, which is fundamental for a faith based on incarnation, the Word becoming flesh, flesh that walked the hill country of Galilee and the hard road to Jerusalem. Formed in the ways of Jesus, ours was always intended to be a dirt in the sandals kind of faith. I've gone on many pilgrimages in my life, and in my experience, they have 4 distinct parts. There's the decision to go, there's the preparation, there's the journey itself, and then there's the return. Decision, preparation, journey, return. And it's the first 2, the decision and the preparation, I want to focus on today. The decision to go on a spiritual journey always starts with an invitation, a call from God. God always takes the first step in a pilgrimage. Within Judaic, Muslim, and Christian faith, the model here is Abram, who would become Abraham, who answered God's call in the book of Genesis, leaving his home to go search of a land which God promises to show him, becoming a pilgrim, a sojourner. Abraham and Sarah's willingness to journey with God makes them a model of faith and trust, and their example resonates even to this day across cultures and traditions. Now, for most of us, the call into pilgrimage isn't as dramatic or as clear as it was for Abraham. We probably don't get that voice from heaven moment. The call for many of us comes as a feeling that something just isn't right, that something needs to change, that a better way is possible. It is a feeling that can come at any point in our lives, but often comes at transition points for young people finishing school, in midlife when family responsibilities change, at retirement, at the loss of a job or a loved one, at the time of a divorce or some other rupture. We all go through times of transition, and very likely there will be a time for you, or perhaps you have already experienced it or are experiencing it now, when you are presented with a decision to carry on as you have, or to pause and to clarify what is truly important, to seek a new way that will bring you closer to your authentic self, that will bring you closer to the God who is always calling you into deeper and more intimate relationship. For as Jesus says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." This is the boy in Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist dreaming of a treasure in the desert. This is Pierre Elliott Trudeau going for a walk in the snow. This is Oswald kneeling in prayer, his heart and hands raised in question to God. At some point, there will be a feeling that something's not right, that the status quo is no longer working, that a better way is possible. For me, the call to pilgrimage came in the feeling of fatigue, the compassion fatigue I was feeling after 30 months as a new minister and in a big role in a global pandemic. 30 months of anxiety and uncertainty and isolation and need, deep need within our congregation, out on the streets, out within myself, the deep need for healing and for hope. I knew it. I could feel it. I needed to reconnect with God, with the land, with who I am as a minister and father and husband and child of creation. This is what the spiritual journey, what pilgrimage offers, a time set apart, a different rhythm to things, a break from the status quo cycles we knowingly and unknowingly participate in to make more space for God and the ways of Jesus in our lives. Sometimes pilgrimage means, like with Abraham, being a stranger in a strange land and to journey far away from home. But it doesn't have to be. It is just as possible to go on pilgrimage to the near and the familiar, Much more important than location or distance is intention. What is important is to say yes to God. To say yes when God invites you into the journey of the sacred, where with spiritual intention, every common bush is on fire with the light of God. At its heart, whether near or far, long or short, on foot or on a bicycle or on a bus, Christian pilgrimage is an embodied act of faith where we intentionally put ourselves into God's hands and trust that Christ will lead us in his way. This doesn't just happen. The inertia of the status quo is strong, and we must make a choice. We must decide. In prayer and with love, we must decide to say yes to the journey. And when we have decided, when we have said yes, then we must prepare for the journey. We must prepare. This is the second step. Our preparation may be physical preparation, getting our bodies ready, but whatever the context, our preparation should certainly include spiritual preparation, prayer and journaling and the reading of sacred texts and rituals. I have learned that one of the most important spiritual preparations is the ritual of packing my backpack, choosing all the items I will need with intention and putting them in their place. And packing for a journey on foot takes on special importance because you have to carry everything with you. Now, I have a confession to make. For my journey on St Oswalds Way, I used a service to book my accommodation each night, and as part of this service, they would transport my backpack from place to place each day. It worked out great. Each day, I just had to carry a small bag with some water and some snacks, and the rest of my stuff would show up at my next stopping place. Now, the wrinkle in this plan was that the transport service stopped when I got to Lindisfarne, but I wanted to walk one more day, about 25 more kilometers, to the town up the coast where I would catch the train to Manchester, where I would fly home from. So on that last day, I had to carry my big backpack. And on that final day, I was confronted with the fact that my preparation, specifically the discipline of packing my backpack with intention, had been less than rigorous. My pack was heavy, too heavy. And by the end of that day, an old ankle injury had flared up, and I ended up limping to the end of my pilgrimage. That evening, I took everything out of my backpack and I looked at it. I hadn't touched half the stuff that I had brought. There was so much unnecessary weight that slowed me down and caused me pain. I had realized that I'd fallen into the just in case, or I might need this trap, which, of course, is the trap of trying to control every outcome. It is the trap of fear, which is the fuel for idolatry and a culture based on grasping and hoarding and consumerism. I did not do the proper preparation because I didn't put in the proper intention. I didn't make the hard choices about what was important and what wasn't. I didn't truly put my trust in God, and because of that, I ended up carrying too much and suffering. This is another great gift of pilgrimage. Our backpacks or suitcases or purses become a metaphor for our lives. Our bags become a metaphor for our lives. Pilgrimage is an opportunity to look at everything we carry around with us. And not just the stuff of our lives, but also the fears we carry, the burdens we carry, the worries and grudges and negative self-talk we carry. It is an opportunity to see with intention all that we carry, all that causes us pain, and to discern with God's help what we might be able to set down or leave behind. It is a call to self-care, a call that I'm still working on answering. On that last night, when I spread out all that I was carrying onto the floor, when I realized that the backpack was a metaphor for my life, I started seeing something else as well. With God's help in prayer, I started seeing what was not there, what I was not having to carry, but others would, perhaps you would. And my backpack was not the weight of poverty. There was not the weight of systemic racism. There was not the weight of homelessness or hunger or misogyny or failing health or abuse or the feelings of shame for who I am or who I love. I'm sometimes asked what the difference is between pilgrimage and a holiday. A pilgrimage is a yes to God's invitation to spiritual journey, and a pilgrimage transforms us in some way. It strips away the status quo to make more space for God. It brings a new rhythm and allows us to examine our lives and the path we are on. And as we journey towards God, we journey closer to each other. We are more able to see the weight that each of us is carrying because we are more conscious of the weight we are carrying. This brings empathy and compassion and a desire to be of service, which is God's desire for us. To use the words of the prophet Isaiah, the journey of faith leads us to do good, seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, plead for the widow. As we journey closer to God, we journey closer to each other and to the treasure of our heart, the spiritual treasure of God's love, the love that brings hope and healing and bears all burdens through the cross of Christ. This is something that the boy who would become a king learned through his trust in God. This past Friday was the feast of St Oswald, and I end now with a prayer associated with him. Please let us pray. This day is your gift to me. I take it, Lord, from your hand and thank you for the wonder of it. God be with me in this your day, every day and every way, with me and for me in this your day. And the love and affection of heaven be toward me. All that I am, Lord, I place into your hands. All that I do, Lord, I place into your hands. Everything I work for, I place into your hands. Everything I hope for, I place into your hands. Amen.